Welcome back to Munroe's Corner. We're back with another Thomas Sowell video. This is the hidden truth behind End of Slavery Part 2. If you didn't catch Part 1, make sure you go back and check it. You might want to check it out now. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have the link, wherever the link is gonna be. It's gonna be, you know what I'm saying, one of these spots up here. You know what I'm saying? So there's also a playlist on my channel. So go ahead and check it out. But yeah, this is part 2. Okay, so we here to learn. Let's get into some more history. New channel goal 10K, man. Let's get there tonight. We get there tonight, that means the channel would have grown 10,000 in a month. You know what I'm saying? That's huge. So if you like the video, make sure you like. That's for the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel, man. That helps the channel grow, man. You know what I mean? And turn the notifications on if you don't want to miss a video, because I drop every day. Let's get it.
The British stamped out slavery, not only throughout the British Empire, which included 1/4 of the world, whether measured in land or people, but also by its pressures and its actions against other nations. For example, the British Navy entered Brazilian waters in 1849 and destroyed Brazilian ships that had been used in the slave trade. The British government pressured the Ottoman Empire into banning the African slave trade, and later threatened to start boarding Ottoman ships in the Mediterranean if that empire did not do a better job of policing the ban. Still later, Americans stamped out slavery in the Philippines. The Dutch stamped it out in Indonesia, the Russians in Central Asia, the French in their West African and Caribbean colonies.
So the British established the chain reaction. You know what I'm saying, was stomping out slavery by leading by example, and not only leading by example, but, you know, forcing their will and applying pressure for people to do the humane thing.
Germans, in their East Africa colonies, often hanged slave traders on the spot when they caught them in the act. No non-Western nation or civilization shared this animosity towards slavery that began to develop in the Western world in the late 18th century, reached its peak in the 19th century, and continued to fuel the anti-slavery efforts that were still necessary in much of Africa and the Middle East on into the first half of the 20th century. This worldwide struggle went on for more than a century because the non-Western world in general resisted and evaded all efforts to get them to root out this institution that was an integral part of their economies and societies.
So like almost a century, yo. Like almost another 100 years this shit went on.
When the British ambassador to the Ottoman Empire first raised the issue of abolishing slavery with the Sultan in 1840, he reported this response: "I have been heard with extreme astonishment, accompanied with a smile at a proposition for destroying an institution closely interwoven with the frame of society in this country, and intimately connected with the law and with the habits and even the religion of all classes, from the Sultan himself on down to the lowest peasant." Similarly, the Maoris of New Zealand responded to comments on their enslavement of some fellow Polynesians on other islands by saying, "We took possession in accordance with our customs, and we caught all the people. Not one escaped. Some ran away from us. These we killed, and others we killed. But what of that? It was in accordance with our customs." When British Foreign Secretary Palmerston sought in 1841, through his representative counsel, Atkins Hamerton, to get the ruler of Zanzibar to end the flourishing slave trade there, this was the response. When Palmerston continued to press for an end to the slave trade, Said pleaded that if he acceded to British demands, his subjects would withdraw their loyalty from him and support another claimant to the throne. And was he not looked up to by all Arabs generally as the person who should protect and guarantee for them their dearest interests, the right to carry on the slave trade? He reminded Hamilton that Arabs were not like the English and other European people who were always reading and writing and were unable to understand the anti-slavery viewpoint. The British obsession with it was quite inexplicable to them.
So he trying to cop out. He trying to cop out by, you know what I'm saying, Arab nations. He's trying to cop out. Leader Arab nations trying to cop out by saying that we're not as pretty much saying there are people wasn't as educated on, you know what I'm saying, why slavery should be abolished, and that they won't understand that, and all that they're gonna see is that him folding to another country, him folding to another leader, and they're gonna drop their loyalty with him and select a new leader, you know what I'm saying, because it's gonna show signs of weakness in him. So that's gonna create the opening for him to get overthrown. You know what I'm saying? Well, look, if you don't do it, next gonna have to bend the knee. You know what I'm saying? Because shit's wrong. You know what I'm saying? So that's what you need to explain. It's your job to educate your people on why it's wrong and why it has to stop. You know what I'm saying? And why other countries are falling in pursuit with the abolishment of slavery. You know what I'm saying? I understand what he's saying, but I don't. It's wrong. Period. Should nobody be enslaved.
The British obsession with it was quite inexplicable to them. In short, what was so patently wrong about slavery, in the eyes of Western civilization of the past 2 centuries, was almost incomprehensible to many non-Westerners. Eventually, some westernized elites or intellectuals in non-Western societies also became embarrassed about slavery, but these societies developed no such fervent anti-slavery movements as those which propelled successive European and European offshoot societies to ban this practice for themselves and to stamp it out, among others. In the Western world, hostility to slavery was by no means confined to elites. When a British ship stopped at Zanzibar in the 19th century, it was considered dangerous to let British sailors go ashore, for fear that they would riot if they saw the slave market there. In the years leading up to the abolition of slavery in Brazil, soldiers and their officers no longer believed in the legitimacy of slavery, and so dragged their feet when assigned the task of recapturing runaway slaves. Soldiers continued to be sent to places where slaves were on the loose, but were not afraid to express their unwillingness to capture fugitives. The commander of an army unit sent to a community in Sao Paulo early in 1888 agreed to maintain order, but openly declined to capture slaves. In places runaways were loitering on the roads, refusing to work. Army units sent to control them did nothing. Not all Brazilian soldiers refused orders to control or recaptured escaped slaves, but there was enough opposition to this role that a formal request was made to the civil authorities by the military to relieve them of this distasteful duty. With public opinion increasingly hostile to the continuation of slavery, and many Brazilians keenly aware of and painfully embarrassed by the fact that their country was the last one in the Western world to still have slavery, the plantation owners were increasingly isolated, and some began freeing their slaves themselves in anticipation of official emancipation, and in some cases in hopes of retaining these workers as employees. Thus, when the official date of emancipation arrived in Brazil, most slaves were already free, either having been freed by plantation owners or having simply left the plantations on their own.
So most of them just went ahead and jumped the gun and just did it because it was inevitable. It was inevitable, and they starting to feel shamed by it because they know what's going around the whole world now with the slaves.
Secure in the knowledge that the surrounding population was not likely to cooperate in their recapture and return. Still.
So a lot of people wasn't, you know what I'm saying, the bounty hunters, whatever, people wasn't capturing the runaway slaves or anything like that, because it's like, I guess they seem like, what's the purpose? It's about to come down. It's about to go down. You know what I'm saying? They're about to be free anyway.
When the official day of emancipation arrived, it was a cause of national celebration. The novelist Machado de Assis recalled that the celebrations following the passage of the Golden Law were the only instance of popular delirium that I can remember ever having seen. One Sao Paulo newspaper described the crowds that gathered to celebrate. To try to describe the splendor of that festival of joy, to tell everything that happened, falls beyond our abilities. Never has this capital seen such multitudinous and unanimous enthusiasm. Perhaps at no other period of history was the contrast between the Western and the non-Western world greater. Here was the scene when the Ottoman Empire announced the end of the slave trade.
This is the scene where they announced the end of the slave trade. It's still people with chains on their neck. What's up with that?
In 1855, when the Sultan's firman was read out in Mecca and Jeddah, it caused a revolution. Turkish officials, including the Qadi who read the firman, were murdered, the garrison shut, and Mecca was in a state of revolt until the Porte repealed the obnoxious order. And when the Governor-General of the Hejaz issued orders on 25 February 1860 forbidding the slave trade in all Turkish ports in the Red Sea, there was great excitement and fear of the recurrence of the 1855 violence. There was no Ottoman cruiser in the Red Sea capable of giving effect to this order, and Turkish officials were too frightened to enforce it. Although the slave trade was formally abolished in the Ottoman Empire, under pressure from the British government, slavery itself continued. As of 1891, the imperial palace purchased 11 slave girls for its harem, as others in the Ottoman Empire purchased women as concubines, typically white women from a region near the Caucasus and the Black Sea, known as Circassia, even though every nation in the Western world had by then outlawed slavery. Not only the Turks accepted such slavery, so did the Circassians. Mothers often groomed their daughters for this role and sold them into what was considered to be a desirable situation, at least by comparison with what was available in Circassia. British Foreign Secretary Palmer...
That's crazy. That, you know what I'm saying? Living conditions is that bad that you prepping your daughter to be sold as a concubine? That's crazy.
Preston said, "The only complaint we have ever heard from the Circassians has been against our attempts to stop the traffic." Contrary to the myths to live by, created by Alex Haley and others, Africans were by no means the innocents portrayed in Roots, baffled as to why white men were coming in and taking their people away in chains. On the contrary, the region of West Africa from which Kunta Kinte supposedly came was one of the great slave trading regions of the continent, before, during, and after the white man arrived. It was Africans who enslaved their fellow Africans, selling some of these slaves to Europeans or to Arabs and keeping others for themselves. Even at the peak of the Atlantic slave trade, Africans retained more slaves for themselves than they sent to the Western Hemisphere.
Damn. Even after emancipation and abolishment of slavery, they was still slave trading and keeping slaves for their own. Africa. That's why it's so hard. That's why it's so hard. Like we say, like the Willie Lynch letters and stuff like that really fucked us up. But we was really fucked up before. We've been messed up. Like when your own people is, you know what I'm saying, when you fighting against your own people, that's a hard fight. Cause we got to get out of each other's way. You know what I'm saying? it's like for how long that's been going on? Like, cause we always talk about the 400 years of slavery. It was slavery before that. Cause evidently, you know what I'm saying, we've been enslaved for a long time. Like kind of like a classism thing, you know what I'm saying? Where, you know what I'm saying, people in the hierarchy, you know what I'm saying, slaving the people down here. You know what I'm saying? Well, like, how do we get out of this mentality? Like, how do we? Because that big part in the contribution to the crabs in the barrel syndrome. You know what I'm saying? Crabs in the barrel, Willie Lynch letters. You know what I mean? Like, as you look at it, like you could take the hood for example. You know what I'm saying? Soon as somebody trying to come up, somebody hating. You know what I'm saying? Keeping them down. It's that hierarchy. Keeping them down. Keeping them below them. Keeping them a worker. You know what I'm saying? When we all should be pushing for each other to uplift and do better. You know what I'm saying? We don't share information like we supposed to share information. You know what I'm saying? Once somebody get on, you need to share that information and let the other people know how to make it. You know what I'm saying? Let your brothers know, let your sisters know how to make it, how we get out, how we survive. That's the way it works. That's the way it should be. I never get why people hold out. Because people wouldn't have so much hate in their heart or feel left out, you know what I'm saying? If people would share, people would educate. Like, the world would be so much a better place. Because when you're struggling, you don't think straight. Your mind is not in the right place. Your mind is not in the right place when you're struggling, man. Start thinking crazy shit, man. You'll do anything to survive, man. You're back against the wall, you do anything. And it's too many people with their backs against the wall, especially right now. We gotta do better. That was really interesting. I enjoy listening to this brother. Yeah, he just tells it. He just puts it out there. You can tell he has no biasness. He just puts the information out there. You know what I'm saying? It's on you what you do with it. All right. But I'm gonna pass this on to my people. You know what I'm saying? Because people need to know, man. All right, man. I know I'm just rambling right now. It's how it be, man. Especially watching these videos. It's so much information. You know what I'm saying? You just got to go back and watch it. So much information given to you at one time. You just gotta go back and just really just soak it all up. Them Arabs was quite vicious. Like, that's ridiculous how they was doing the slaves. Steady bucking the jack. Man. Alright, man. Let's talk about it in the comments, man. And I'll see y'all next video. Let me know which one let me know what video I need to watch next. And you know what I'm saying? We'll come back and we'll chop it up. Alright? If you enjoyed this reaction, make sure you like, subscribe, turn the notifications on. Wow. Peace out, man. One love, man. I really mean that. One love.